The Walking Dead was probably one of the longest running TV shows in recent memory. It is just a show that in the beginning was really good and then lost a lot of people in between, but I was one of the few people who actually stuck all the way to the end. That's right, I really stuck with The Walking Dead. I've been watching it for years now, by basically almost a decade. And because I read the comics, which I absolutely love, I highly recommend them. I really wanted to see it all the way to the end and stick through no matter like all the low points. It really felt like at some points they were just like trying to fill it with content, like besides the following the story from the comics. And now that it's ended, they announced that they were going to release a lot of spin-offs and basically just form their own basically cinematic universe of the Walking Dead characters. And in the beginning I was like, okay, this sounds like a strange idea, but at the same time I'm curious because, you know, I love these characters, especially the characters focused in the Walking Dead Dead City, which are Negan and Maggie. And they're some of my favorite characters. I just absolutely love them. I love the concept of the show. I was like, okay, if they make spin-offs like this, which center on characters, which, you know, and are also like self-contained and can be enjoyed as its own separate story, I'm totally on board. However, now that it's finished, now that I watched the show, the season, I gotta say that I have a lot of mixed thoughts, and I'm gonna go deep into why I thought these things and what my final thoughts on Dead City are. So the overall synopsis of Dead City is basically Negan and Maggie have to work together to rescue Maggie's son Herschel, who was a big part in the original series and the comics, and they have to travel to New York City, which is a completely different location from a lot of the places we've seen in the original The Walking Dead series. So for example, we don't get to see many of the city zombie locations besides the beginning in Atlanta, and I just enjoy the way the show plays with that kind of setting, even though it's kind of like brief, like it doesn't really have the same budget as some of like the other zombie action movies. It's like really low budget stuff. In fact, some of the shots that you see the whole city are really low budget, and really they just look weird, like the classic The Walking Dead, you know, CGI deer kind of weird. And it's not really that distracting because the focus of these shows is the, you know, the characters and how they deal with these situations. And as always, the walkers design is always top notch. I like, that's one of the best things of The Walking Dead is the zombie design, and they don't miss in that regard. And the series has a lot of high moments. It has some low moments. It basically continues the same quality of the original series. Like, for example, there's some really long, boring areas, episodes where nothing happens. And in 6 episodes, it kind of like has that like roller coaster. It feels like a really long movie. And well, I'll go into spoilers at the end because I really have to talk about the ending and the future of, you know, the franchise. But I feel like the high moments really make it worth it. There are some really interesting scenes, especially like between the characters. I just love the relationship the hatred relationship between Maggie and Negan, which is complicated because, you know, obviously Maggie hates him because of what he did to her husband, but also she has like this complex relationship where she forgave him, she doesn't forgive him anymore, and they play a little bit with that. We saw a lot of it in season 11, especially in one scene that really stuck with me, which is this one.
I can't forgive you. Even though I'm so grateful that you saved my son. Even though I know that you're trying.
And that is a reason why Dead City is good, because I really love the interactions between these characters. I feel like it's one of the best parts of the later seasons of the show, and the comic deals with that, but very little, and I feel like the show does a lot more, and that's something I really like, that, you know, like the Walking Dead producers put a lot of storylines that like didn't fit into the comic, but also have a lot of implications, and, you know, the series continues with that. And Maggie's still this really amazing character. I feel like Negan also changed a lot. I feel like from the beginning where he was introduced to now, he's gone through like a roller coaster of changes, and that is something that is maintained throughout the season. I feel like his character could have done a lot more, but we get to see like a lot of implications also of his relationship with, you know, the law, and also like the Walking Dead world keeps evolving after the finale of, you know, the original series. So we see like a lot of different hints of what's going on in the world. For example, these different new factions, these new societies that are created, like for example the ones from the New Babylon society. I feel like that leaves a lot of interesting stuff, like how the world adapts from the zombie apocalypse. And I feel like The Walking Dead really did a great job with that in the later seasons. So that's something I really enjoyed too, the world building. But now I'm going to go into some of the criticisms of the show, because it really, like I said before, it has a lot of boring parts that don't make sense. It could have been condensed even into like 4 episodes, I guess. and I don't like that they continued into a new season. I feel like that is probably the biggest turnoff, is the way they ended it. I feel like everything built up into a very explosive finale where Maggie and Negan rescue Herschel, and instead, like, the entire season is just a setup for season 2 and probably 3, 4. Like, I hope we don't get to that many seasons, because I feel like The Walking Dead has this problem where they're trying to squeeze as much of the show as, like, they try to squeeze the most out of the comics, and we got some really crappy storylines. I still think that season 7 and 8 could have been condensed into one single season. Like, the entire Saviors the war storyline could have been condensed much further, and instead we got a lot of filler episodes, and it resulted in some of the worst seasons of the show, even though there was a lot of potential there. And I hope the same doesn't happen with the Daryl series, the Rick and Michonne series, which is going to come out next year. I really hoping that one is amazing and they don't drag it out. I feel like that is my main complaint with the not only the Dead City series in itself, but just the way they are going to keep dragging everything out so much to squeeze as much content and money as possible, because The Walking Dead is pretty much AMC's like last good property, because Breaking Bad is over, and I just hope they don't do that. They don't, because it is really an amazing storyline, and I hope they don't butcher it like they did at several points. I feel like season 11 ended up in a great note, just covering everything from the comics, and I just hope they don't do that. That's all I'm trying to say. So yeah, it's probably the biggest thing. It's the way they ended it that I didn't like. However, the series also has a lot of moments, but you know, if anybody's still watching The Walking Dead at this point, I feel like those things are gonna turn off people. Like right now, I'm kind of turned off from watching the Daryl show, even though I love Norman Reedus, I love his character, but I'm still curious to see where it goes, because this is all new content for comic book readers like me. And but just that's pretty much like my main thought, is that a lot of us Walking Dead fans are just pretty much watching because of force of habit and not because we truly enjoy some of these storylines. So that is probably my biggest criticism, and it's not really like a criticism of the show itself, but just the overall franchise. I feel like they should have made this like a really brief storyline and then just ended it there. But to wrap up, I feel like that city had its good moments. It had a lot of really amazing stuff, and yeah, I feel like this show is pretty much only watched by hardcore Walking Dead fans who stuck it through. And yeah, it's a show made for the fans, but that is the main problem, that it's like more focused on squeezing more content than it is of delivering a good story. But anyways, those are pretty much all my thoughts. I'm gonna give it overall a 72 out of 100. Like I said before, it has a lot of enjoyable moments, but I feel like some of it's like set up for season 2 stuff really hold it back. But anyways, that's pretty much everything for today. So if you liked the video, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. So have a good day, everybody.